Yeah, good morning, and thank you for joining us on our next presentation in our business resilience webinars. So today's is on the getting the right cloud strategy. So we're going to go through a few things about cloud. I expect many of you have approached cloud. You may have implemented cloud in some way. Your businesses will definitely have a goal, maybe not necessarily a strategy at this point of what you want to do. We tend to see at the kind of C level within many organizations, there is a drive towards cloud. We do think that there is maybe a kind of misunderstanding of what cloud is and what the benefits are. So within this this webinar, we're going to just kind of go through a few of those, and we're going to talk about where we've done some work with our own customers about talking about where we've worked with our own customers dealing with their particular predicament that they had around public cloud, and I think you'll find that interesting. So that'll do. Just move to our next slide. This is a series of the webinars that we're running at the moment. We're all at home because of the kind of COVID issue that's going on at the moment. So we've still got a few more to come. We've got the business process automation one on Thursday the 23rd, and we've got our security webinar on Thursday the 30th. So if you haven't already signed up for those, please do. If you need a registration link for it, get in touch with your account manager or someone in our sales team, and they can send that out to you. So, hold on. It's the great working from home. I can hear a cat in the background. Let me just mute that. There we go. So today we're going to talk about getting the right cloud strategy. And this is an interesting one. Every business has kind of unique requirements as far as their IT infrastructure goes. In the kind of many years I've been dealing with data center technology and looking at people's environments, nearly every environment has been different in some way, because it is generally unique to the requirements of that business. But we all have similar challenges, and those kind of similar challenges are driving us towards things like Microsoft or Azure's public cloud. It doesn't necessarily mean it's the right way to go. What we'd like to look at is getting the right balance. We find that is the most important thing, and there generally isn't a one-size-fits-all approach. We've heard of people from the cloud providers placing reps on site, 6 months, 9 months, free of charge, looking at how they can adjust your environment, and that generally means that they're trying to push you into a kind of their version of a one-size-fits-all approach by deploying that resource. What we like to look at is a more of a kind of hybrid cloud strategy, and we think that that's the important way to go. But just a quick refresher, because we're going to be throwing around a few different terms that might be industry buzzwords to us, being in the kind of solution part of the business. So, but they might not be kind of clear to everyone else. What we mean by public cloud is a multi-tenanted platform, always kind of a public platform such as AWS, Azure, or the kind of Google platform. But this can also include platforms such as the kind of software as a service or SaaS platforms like Microsoft 365, Salesforce, if you use that for CRM, Concur, the platform from SAP for managing your business expenses, and probably the most apt at the moment in the in this kind of work from home world that we've got, Zoom, which is a public cloud platform. And all of them have their own peculiarities. There are certain things about Zoom that have been in the news. Not all of them true. Some of them are kind of fringe issues, and I'm sure that there's lots of fighting between Microsoft and others about that. But they all typically run granular billing. They're either going to bill you per object that you use from them. They're probably going to bill you on a kind of time basis, so per minute. For example, Microsoft will bill you per minute for your usage of your virtual machines, or per user, so in terms of the SaaS platforms. When we talk about private cloud, we're generally talking about a dedicated platform. Now, this could fall into two types, really. You could have a dedicated platform, so dedicated infrastructure that is provided to you by a managed service provider. So they may own the equipment, but they then sell you time or kind of rent that equipment to you, but you kind of run it as your own infrastructure. So you kind of rack space is a good example of that. Or it could be stuff that is on your premise that you own, but you run it with the latest kind of cloud management technology. So one of the things that we've had from the cloud really is they offer great management platforms, but what they do that is what we've now been able to do is have those cloud-like management platforms put into our kind of on-premise hardware platforms. These are typically billed in various ways. So if it's a kind of rented co-located solution, you may pay for it like you'd pay for a typical cloud solution, right to the other end of the scale where you just do a CapEx purchase and buy your own equipment and put it on your own premise. Those are kind of two terminologies that I've got for pure public cloud and pure private cloud. What we look at, and with our partner HPE, is a hybrid cloud. Now, a hybrid cloud isn't a thing. It's not a public cloud or it's not a private cloud. It's actually a strategy rather than being a specific thing. It's a mixture of the two. So it's about getting the best balances for your service across either the on-prem or a public cloud platform. And it's about placing the application and services in the best place for their performance, availability, manageability, and cost. So examples of this might be, I doubt there's very many people out there today running Microsoft Exchange. I know when I started in the industry, one of the key servers that people would have would be an Exchange server. That's pretty much gone away. It is more cost effective. It is probably better performance in most cases. It's definitely more highly available, and it's probably much easier to manage out of Microsoft's Office 365 platform. So that's one that really suits it, and nearly there is a real minority of businesses that might still need an on-premise email and communications platform. But you go to the flip side of that, you're looking at things like, I'm going to use another Microsoft example, Microsoft SQL Server. Now, SQL Server doesn't necessarily work as well in the cloud from a cost perspective. We've got an example of this coming up as we go through the session. But there are particular applications that really do, and it's especially from a cost perspective, but also from performance perspectives as well on these managed platforms. But it's about getting the right cloud strategy for your business. One great quote. This has come from so always pay tribute to the people who produce the quotes. This comes from James Hall, who's one of the kind of world, I suppose he is the world leading expert on HPE, 3PAR and Primera. Cloud is an experience, not a destination. There are some businesses out there who are rushing towards the cloud as if it is a destination that they need to reach. We don't see that as the case. What we see is you should have the ease of the management of cloud, but it doesn't necessarily mean you have to put your services into a public cloud. You need to put them into the best place for your business at that point in time. And with a kind of true hybrid cloud strategy, you can get the most optimal environment for your business that delivers the best, it delivers it in the most cost-effective way, and effectively will save you money over the long term. As an example, I've pulled together some examples of kind of how things might shape up. This is a very, very basic kind of back of the fag packet type example. But this is an Azure virtual machine. So on the left-hand side, you've got the typical virtual machine size that probably all of you guys who are running a virtualized platform today will see. You typically have 4 virtual cores, 16 gigs of RAM, 100 gig of storage, a Windows license associated with it, and in Azure, that type of virtual machine will cost you around $300 a month. If you've got 100 of these, which isn't untypical or atypical for most organizations, you're looking at a bill of about £30,000 a month. That's on a pay-as-you-go basis. They do offer the ability to pay for these up front, so you can do 3 years all in one go, and that can reduce it, by about 30%. But it's still a $366,000 a year cost for running those virtual machines. Now it's very flexible. You can start off quick. You can have you can spin up 10 virtual machines to start with. But typically most businesses have got an established platform, so you're either going to have to lift and shift, or you're going to have to spend a lot of time and a lot of development effort to make your applications kind of cloud native or right sized for the cloud. On the right hand side, we've got an example of a HP hardware solution. So we work the other way with this. So we're talking about the outlay of $180,000 for a 6-node SimpliVity cluster, then some switching. But I've been fair. I've put the VMware licensing on top of this, also the Microsoft licensing, and then we have co-location. So to all intents and purposes, you would have a solution within someone else's data center that's managed by them in a very similar way to the Azure, and you'd be managing it through a web-based management interface. And with the right settings in VMware, in particular, you can have very similar levels of automation that you would have within that cloud environment. So the total for that sort of equipment comes to just under $340,000 as an outright purchase. If we divide that into 36, it gives us a kind of $9,000 per month cost for that. Now we can, you can look at leasing that. You can put it onto GreenLake. There are many different ways that you can pay for that equipment. But at the end of the day, there is a 3x premium for running this in Azure. What I haven't elaborated on this slide is the Microsoft platform. Every time, if you want to add the 101st virtual machine, they're going to charge you another £3,600 a year for that virtual machine. If you have a platform such as SimpliVity, you'll probably find that there's at least a 20 to 30% amount, kind of additional amount of capacity in the system, which from a cloud, private cloud versus public cloud perspective, means that those next virtual machines are free when you look back at what you're doing with the kind of Microsoft, or even the AWS, or whatever flavor you wish to have. Now that's a kind of, as I said, a back of the fag packet example. We've actually got this, as I said at the kind of beginning of the webinar. We have an example of this. Very recently, we've worked with one of our customers. They are in the gaming business, based in Malta, but they've got offices kind of throughout Europe. They're a B2B provider to the well-known kind of B2C brands. So they create, if you've gambled online, you've probably used their technology. So if you've used online roulette tables, those sorts of things, these guys have developed those and provide them to the brands or the kind of online web services that you use. So they were kind of born in the cloud company, really, but they were having trouble with their cloud platform. When we looked at what they had around 700 virtual machines running in across multiple clouds from different providers. So in Azure, AWS, they also had some stuff in Google as well, and it was costing them around $500,000 a month to run this. There was one virtual machine, and I mentioned SQL servers earlier on as not being that suitable. They had a single SQL server from Microsoft that was costing them $50,000 each month. Absolutely staggering. You know, this was causing them kind of operational issues, because originally they'd started off and traded the kind of capex for the opex, but the opex was starting to get out of control, and it's an unsustainable model. It's great for the short, in the short term, it's fine. You've got the services up and running, but for the medium and long term, it's not a great way to go. So they came to us. They needed a solution from a trusted advisor. And we got a quote from the customer. We're the only partner who really took an interest and understood their business. Now, when we looked at this, and it was immediate that a hybrid methodology would be the right way for them to go. They didn't move everything out of the cloud. They still have about 90%. They still have, so 90% has moved to an on-prem solution, and 10% still remains within the cloud. So, but there's a huge cut in the amount that they were spending each month. It was built around HP technology, so we used the DL385s. For those of you who are not familiar with them, they're based on AMD technology, and they provide an incredibly dense computing platform. So for the techies on the call, these 385s had 2 AMD processors, each with 64 cores and 2 terabytes of RAM. So absolutely incredibly high performance systems. To support the storage, we provided them with the HP Primera platform, and then we could use a load of HP data center switching and SAN switches, and we could get the VMware and the Veeam and everything else to kind of keep the environment backed up and running. There was an initial cost to them of 1.2 million, and then they added another 700K for an additional set of servers, kind of just after the first ones went in. But now they're kind of on that platform. It's pretty much giving them everything that they had in the cloud, but at a far lower cost. And the outcome was the return on investment over 3 years will be $15 million. So this kind of investment of $2 million that they made in their new hardware, they'll get back in just under 4 months. They've been benchmarking on the equipment, and the benchmarks produced over 3 times more processing power than they were getting from the cloud. And the Primera is providing them with huge amounts of storage, and they're not going to run out soon. What's happened in the kind of hardware business is when we now have deduplication and flash storage, and a lot of the data that when we look at the kind of bulk data at the beginning is getting deduplicated by these very high performance disk array systems. So they don't see any need to add any additional cost to their storage platform for another 3 years. So this has really changed the outlook for their business, and it means they can add more customers. They are now they now feel that they have the platform to take on more business, and that's a really interesting thing for them to say. We get told that public cloud is all about elasticity and the ability to scale up and scale down quick. Well, actually, these guys did not see that, and their hybrid solution gives them that. They can still go out to the cloud if they need to. They can do testing in the cloud, but they can use cloud in the way that I believe it's intended for. I believe it's intended to stand things up quick, to run things for an amount of time, but then to turn them off. It is not designed for really for these kind of 24/7 operations, and you can see that in the way that Microsoft builds their virtual machines. So, kind of takeaways from this, that a cloud first strategy doesn't always suit businesses. I said on probably I think the first or second slide as we came in, every environment is different, and everyone has their own, it needs a solution that fits them, but everyone has similar challenges. It's to use cloud where it works best for your business. Use a private cloud to host the applications in the right place to give you the best performance and kind of optimize the cost. We truly believe that the hybrid solution is the way forward. We are, we wouldn't say, it's you must go private, you must go public. It is about that balance. If the kind of upfront costs, I showed some examples of the capex costs are an issue. It can be put through GreenLake. And GreenLake can allow you to be billed on a consumptive basis. So you own the equipment and it gets billed on a consumptive basis, just like you would from the cloud provider. And between ourselves and HPE, I think we can make it simple for you. So some key considerations to look at, when reviewing your cloud strategy, look at these questions and kind of take them away. It's if you have a view of how much you're spending, take that. When will I need more capacity and how much will it cost? How do I need to deploy new apps quickly, and what are your current risks? But again, a mixture of public and private can address all of these questions, can be the answer to these questions. One of the benefits of the hybrid cloud, we can close the skills gap, so you can adopt the latest technology very quickly. All of the very latest on-prem equipment has been built around kind of a cloud type way of managing it. No longer are you expected to go on a 5-day training course just to manage the equipment. It's all managed through kind of HTML5 type web interfaces, and does have the look and feel and simplicity of a cloud platform. Enable your IT staff to focus on business outcomes and developing applications rather than managing the infrastructure. Manage your costs, and that's easy to do with a hybrid solution. And manage your risks. So the risk thing does get spoken about. It's ensuring that your data is in the right place. You can, especially if you're on a regulated market or regulated business, you can tell your you can inform the regulator that exactly where your data is. If it's on your equipment, under your control, where it is. It's not some public cloud provider who's decided to snapshot it and move it over to the United States whilst they perform maintenance. You don't have any of that with your own private cloud solution. And you can also get good insights. So monitor your usage and cost and get warnings and expert advice and keep accurate records and logs. So just going to move on to HPE GreenLake, which I've kind of discussed earlier on. So HPE GreenLake is an offering from Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, and it's a way of deploying your hybrid cloud. So it isn't a product, which is one thing that people kind of ask me all the time. Is that what are the speeds and feeds of GreenLake? Well, no, there aren't any speeds and feeds of GreenLake. It is a program for running. It's a program for running private clouds in the same way that you could run or pay for a public cloud. So one of the ways that this works is it allows you to have the equipment on your site or within your co-located data center. So the equipment is under your control, but you pay for it on a monthly basis. So, and you pay for only the part of the equipment that you're using. So a good example of this would be if you're buying if you need a new storage array, so say you need a Primera disk array system, you can pay for the terabytes of storage that you use on that Primera per month rather than having to pay have a CapEx outlay to buy the equipment to put it in your data center. You can do a similar thing with servers, so you can have servers on there and you could have 100 servers on your GreenLake contract, but you would only pay for the servers that you've turned on. They include things like buffers. So there is always a hardware buffer. So typically it's 10% in most GreenLake environments. So if you had those 100 servers, you would have another 10 servers as a buffer in the environment that could be turned on and spun up with applications when you need. So you kind of get the flexibility and kind of bursting ability that you would have within a cloud. But again, it's within your own environment. The management side of it, you have a one kind of as a service portal, an operational console. So this ties into the cost side of it, so you can see exactly what you're consuming and what you're using in real time. There's a kind of unified cloud experience because you can place HPE's hybrid cloud solutions that work with Azure Stack and work with kind of AWS into a GreenLake program and kind of have both things managed under the same environment. There is self-servicing and self-provisioning from the portal, and you can simplify the IT with the cloud ops automation. So one of the key benefits, or the key benefits of GreenLake, speed. You can get the kind of faster time to value with with proprietary cloud methodology and automation, simplicity. You have an overlay of HP PointNext services with GreenLake who will assist in the environment, so giving you that kind of managed service assistance, and their savings. You can optimize the costs. You don't have to. And one of the things that people we see with GreenLake is you only need to have the resource that you're using today deployed and being used on site. The traditional way of buying something is you would go, when you're doing a replacement for a disk array, you might say, well, I need to size it so that it looks, it will last me for 3 years or 5 years or however long I need to plan it out. With GreenLake, you would actually deploy it on day one to meet your requirements for that day. Over the length of the contract, HP PointNext services will come and modify the equipment on your behalf to ensure that it meets your ongoing requirements throughout the life of the contract. And then there's the security side. Because it's in your premise, you're not exposed to any of the issues that you might have in a public cloud environment. So I think that kind of wraps it up for the GreenLake part. And kind of moves on to the next steps. I hope you have found today's webinar useful. Please get in touch with us to help you create the right hybrid cloud strategy for your business. And finally, thanks for taking the time to join us today on this webinar, and we look forward to hearing from you soon. Goodbye.